I think you're walking away from it far too quickly.
Yep.
In my opinion, it looks great for players. Now, as we get into replica, that's maybe where the wheels start coming off.
Yeah, this is rubbish.
Here we are. This is the authentic Dortmund kit.
This is the replica Dortmund kit.
But is this the death of Ultraweave? So, Rob, what we're thinking?
I think we start with your one because this is the replica and it doesn't even feel fair to call it a replica compared to this technology, which we talked about it on the Italy shirt review a few months ago. Here it is on Dortmund. I'd like for you to talk us through some of that first, and then we can look at how this pales in comparison.
Yeah, well, if any of yous out there haven't seen the Italy review that we did of the Ultraweave, you just check it up here for the link and you'll get it there. So what I would say, Rob, is this for me is, from a technology perspective, one of the nicest kits out there. It's got a beautiful fabric, which to a lot of the fans, it will feel different to what they're used to in a replica shirt.
Yeah.
This goes back to 2002 when we first did stretch woven for, at that time it was with Nike. Puma have kind of done something similar, but they've actually done it in a diamond stretch woven, which basically means as that fabric gets cut, it makes it difficult for the fabric to basically rip any further forward. So a really nice fabrication on it. It's super lightweight, so from a player perspective, it's going to feel really lightweight and it's going to feel basically like you're not wearing anything. So from a player perspective, it'll be basically no distractions. Mm-hmm. What I also like about it is they've kind of darted the garment so that they're taking out all of the irritation in the seams.
What does darting mean, Craig?
So basically darting, so if on a normal football shirt, what you would expect to see is a seam that either comes in like this, which we call a setting sleeve, or you'd have what they call a raglan sleeve, which kind of comes over, or you can have a saddle sleeve, but effectively it means that it's a seam that creates an extra pattern. What they've done here is they've done it in one piece, but they've darted it so they get the shape to go around the arm. So that's what
it's like pinching a triangle out of a piece of paper and it creates a three-dimensional shape.
That's exactly it. But what I'd like to do is, and we've done this on the Italian kit, if I turn this thing inside out, you get it. And Rob, would you mind just turning yours inside out as well, please?
I mean, I'd rather not.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But if you see how clean that is from a player perspective, that is completely bonded down the side. So from a chafing perspective, now I know a lot of players wear undergarments and vests and so on and so forth, but that's just going to be super clean, super flat, whereas this is overlocked down the sides. It's basically because this is really expensive to produce for players, whereas this, as a replica for the fan, who, to be fair, is probably not going to be running around the field that often, it's basically being overlocked. Yeah. But the cleanness of that is superb. You can see that they've added in a little bit of extra bonding, so this it basically reinforces that area, which I really quite like. But they have been bold enough to put a bit of overlocking in where they need it. So that back panel, that basically goes around where you basically would see the number. So if I turn that back round the other way, the other thing I really like about this kit is, and there are some things that I don't like about it, but I'll get into the good stuff first. But I love this detail on the arm. I think aesthetically it looks really nice. It's got, you know, an absolutely perforated hole, so it's going to be nice and lightweight on the arm. It's not going to gather too much moisture. You could argue it could stretch a little bit more further into the arm, but I love that detail.
Yeah, I mean,
really love it.
I love it, just not on this shirt. So we saw it on the Arsenal kit where that had got this flat knit cuff on it, the elastication, and it was absolutely beautiful. And the same when it was in the back neck of the Italy shirt. With here, it would appear that everything has been about stripping out weight as much as possible. So this fabric is like tissue paper. It's absolutely incredible. The seams are super lightweight, so where they're bonded, it's a lightweight adhesive film that runs through the seams instead of stitches, so all the weight has been stripped out of it. You hold this up and you can feel where the weight sits, so it just feels superfluous. And there are other ways that a similar visual could have been achieved by using like a wider strip of bonding tape underneath that can then be laser perforated. There's loads of stuff that could have given a similar visual effect but wouldn't have added that extra weight. It just feels a little bit unnecessary. It's like we've built a Formula 1 car and now we're going to put 21-inch alloys on it.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, there must, you know better than anybody with all the work that we do currently, that there are loads of technologies out there like Bemis do, Versafilm. Versafilm is basically a tape that you use to bond with, but as Rob said, there's stuff that they create which stretches for miles. So I think you're right, you could have probably gotten that little issue taken care of. But there's something I like about that. I hear what you're saying, it's adding weight, but for me personally, I really quite like it. I would have liked to have seen something, and maybe this is where I'm going to get into the negative side of this particular jersey. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit richer around the I think it's a 1x1 rib on the neckline. It's okay. It's not the best execution of that. It feels
very dry,
and it also feels like that might irritate you. The other thing that we've seen a lot of, and Nike have done a good job, New Balance have done a good job, of some of the heat transfers and some of the badging applications. Now, you can't complain about this from a weight perspective for a player because it's straight up and down. But what you could complain about is there's not much richness.
Details free, isn't it? To make it look like an embroidery or whatever else, it's just graphic work.
Yeah, and so I think that's a poor execution. The other thing is, what they've tried to do is there's a really nice kind of printed detail that runs through the black stripes. Now, personally, I quite like it, and I know for a fact it will relate back to, something to do with Dortmund. But what I don't like about it is the fact that it's a slightly off yellow. So what it's basically doing is making the stripes look as if they've been washed out a little bit. And then when you get this big black sponsorship logo right in the centre, which even that in itself, I mean, come on, guys, there's stuff out there that you could have perforated, that you could have taken away some of the weight, because that's just a big...
It's not even a very nice
of plastic
shade of black.
No, so I think, for me, that's probably the only couple of criticisms I would give. But honestly, Puma, I think you've totally come up with a really beautiful shirt, as in the Ultraweave, and I think you're walking away from it far too quickly. So, in my opinion, it looks great for players. Now, as we get into replica, that's maybe where the wheels start coming off.
Yeah, this is rubbish.
Right. Don't hold back, mate.
Simple as that, rubbish. I mean, literally to a certain extent, because it is made from recycled material.
Right. Well, kudos to that.
Yeah, which is good. It's to be applauded. I actually think that, albeit it's not a flat knit, it's a single knit, is probably better than what's on the authentic shirt. At least feels a bit softer and nicer against the neck.
I don't know if I can agree with that. I mean, I think we're basically trying to vote for the best two turds, basically. They're both...
It's like two bald men fighting over a comb. Yeah, so there just isn't much nice to say about it. It feels like a Sunday League shirt. The material feels like it. Within the authentic player issue shirt, the material has got, as Craig said, like a structure within it, like a triangle, hexagonal type of structure to make it like a ripstop, and it's kind of been mimicked within this. It's a bit easier to see from the reverse side, but with that, it's then created some issues where, as Craig's just talked about, the print within the stripes, it's really sharp on this woven fabric, and here it's not, because it's quite a spongy material. So as they've applied the print, it's kind of dispersed the ink a little bit, so that's not great. I think the cat logo execution, fully embroidered directly on, and it just feels really old. It's the polar opposite of everything that we've got here. I think the crest is nice. It's a embroidered applique, so that means that there is some heat transfer action on a base fabric, and then the embroidery is just around the edge to get it to apply, which is good. But I mean, this as a football shirt, I'd be flabbergasted if it wasn't possible to make that for like $6, even including Dortmund on the back. That's not to say that's what Puma have paid to make it, but it's cheap fabric. They'd be buying absolutely miles of it and saving money on that. There's nothing on there that feels like a premium execution for what's really a statement club for, certainly it's Puma's biggest team in Germany, one of the biggest teams that they work with in Europe.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the fans are being shortchanged.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think we've seen that across a lot of the replica kits versus the pro kits. There seems to be quite a disparity between the two of them, in as much as, you know, that a lot of effort's being put into a lot of the players' kits, and when it gets transferred into the replica kits, it is just pretty straight up and down. And I think where a lot of the brands are failing is when the shirts themselves, you know, they're not really that well designed into with regards to the players' version, so that when it gets taken over into the replica, there's not much for the designers to play with. So yeah, my final comment would be, I just can't believe Puma's walked away from this. I think that is, you know, yes, there's problems with some of the Dortmund version of it, but as a kit, I think this was great. So Puma, I think you've dropped a bollock there. I think it's great, but I'm sure there's reasons why you've done it, and I'm hoping that the good team at Puma are coming up with even better technology and better designs than what we've seen. But yeah, I think that's all I can say about it, Rob.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It is a great technology, and I would have loved to have seen a similar approach to what Kappa have taken over the last almost 25 years now, of having a good technology and working with it, refining it, improving it over the years, and not leaping straight across to something else. If you've enjoyed the video, and we hope you have, please click like and subscribe. We'd love to see you next time on the channel. If you want even more interaction with us, involvement with the kit community, both from a design and a collector's perspective, please head over to our Patreon, where you'll be able to see a little bit more there. We hope to catch you on the other side. Take care. We'll see you next time.
See yous.
I think that's cool. And then we've got that as an option as well.
Yeah.
We can all maybe the one at the beginning was great anyway. Thanks for that, guys.
You sure?
Yeah.
You don't want that done again? No, you're comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, good, right.
Wunderbar.